everybody. Welcome to the Halal Food Podcast again. Today we've got a very special guest from the farming community. I've got a brother here, brother Flavian. So today I decided to bring him on the podcast so that we can interact with him to understand the challenges farmers face and also to just get a better understanding of how people from the ethnic minorities can access the farming profession. So without further ado, I invite Flavian to introduce himself first before we start.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Awa. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Yes, as you said, my name is Flavian Obiero. I'm a farmer, a pig farmer based in Hampshire, village called Upton Gray. Like I spoke with Awa the other day.
Yeah,
Farming is about everything. Yes, I'm a pig farmer, but I'd happily farm cows or
yeah.
have farmed cows, sheep, pigs, and everything. Goats, so chickens. So for me, I'm not just, I don't like just being put in a box
Yeah,
as farming one animal. So yeah, I'm ready for any farming.
yeah. Thank you very much, Flavian. It was very exciting coming to your farm, seeing the cattle, seeing the sheep. And the reason why I really wanted you to come on to this podcast is there are so many Muslims. There are whether Muslims from Africa, from Asia, or Muslims from other backgrounds who are hoping to get into farming. So what I wanted you to take us through is if somebody wants to go into farming, what do you do? Do you try and go and buy the farm? Do you start from getting the experience, or what would you advise somebody who has never been to farming that wants to go into farming?
I would say the buying land, you need to have a lot of money to buy
Yeah,
land in this country. So if you have money, go ahead and buy the land or buy a farm. But then for the people that don't have money to buy land, you can still farm without uh, buying land. So wherever you live, county councils have things called allotments, or like just small plots that they give to people. So you could start even doing a small vegetable farming there, or even keeping chickens in your back garden, as long as you follow the laws. Like at the moment, we've got the avian influenza. You've got to abide by the rules whether chickens are in or out. When it comes to farming, sort of on a commercial scale, I would say just go to your local area. If there's a farm there, I would say as hard as it sounds, just knock on the door. Um, the farm I'm on now, I turned up here in 2010 for the first time after being given a phone number by a farmer. And most farmers, if you call them or knock there, they'll ask you what experience you have. So
yeah,
one main thing is, can you drive? So a lot driving license is important, because even if you never worked with animals, you can drive a tractor from point A to B, and then you slowly learn, get confident. You could do jobs in the yard, and I think also going in with an open mind. So don't go in thinking, and I think that's something us as Africans, and I'm sure Awal you can say something about this, is that we see farming as a job for sort of people in the village.
yeah. It's true. It's
and
true.
I
Yeah,
think and I think like back home, like in Kenya, fa- uh, farming is mainly down in the countryside. So small scale farming is mainly in the countryside, whereas in this country, the money is in the countryside. So since I've gone into farming, I see farming as a career. It's a job.
it's
You can start.
absolutely.
When I first started, I knew nothing. Like I turned up, my main job was pressure washing. So every afternoon, after helping with cleaning the chickens and feeding the chickens in the morning, cleaning the pigs every morning, giving them straw. Um, 3 times a week, I had to get up at 5:30 to bed up the cows by hand, because we didn't have a machine to do it back then.
Yeah,
If it was something like lambing, I'd help with that as well. One of my main jobs was every afternoon, especially in the winter, because we're moving animals around all the time. We'd have a trailer there ready for me to wash, and that's 2 3 hours. You're there just with a pressure washer and a hose, just holding it. And back then, I used to hate it, but now, 12 years on, I'd happily stand there with a pressure washer, earphones in, with a podcast, and just stand in there and wash, because it's so
wow.
therapeutic. But then my boss now tells me he doesn't pay me to wash. So he gets younger people coming in. We've got two
Yeah.
young lads on the farm. So they get to do that because I go and do other jobs that they can't do. So I think the open mind is definitely key because you will get to do so many different jobs. Like for me, I remember because I didn't know anything, I'd get put in the workshop and my boss is like, okay, there's bolts and nuts there, different sizes, sort them out into size and put them tidily. Back then, I think, why am I being given this stupid job? But then now, I'm glad I did that because now I can tell someone that that is a M12 bolt or that's a 10 mil, 13 mil or whatever. I think having an open mind is definitely a key thing in farming. And then another one that's a non-negotiable is being resilient, because as you said, whether you're African, Asian, or anyone from a non-white background or non-farming background, and then to add on top of that, if you're a Muslim, you've got a difference that some people that you might end up working with that aren't exposed will pick on, or they'll because they don't know anything about it, they'll always go there like, oh, what's this? Why'd you do this? Why'd you have to pray 5 times a day? Why'd you have to go to a mosque on a Friday? And all those things. But whereas someone like me, even though I'm not a Muslim, my auntie's Muslim, I've got cousins that are Muslim, loads of friends that are Muslims. I've grown up with the Islamic culture around me. I understand that. But for a lot of people in the UK, unless they've been exposed or live in places like Birmingham, Bradford, Leicester, London, they've got no idea. So some of the questions will be stupid, they will be triggering, but just look at it from a point of you're dealing with someone that has no knowledge of where you're coming from, almost like a child, even though they're an adult, almost like a child. So explain these things openly. But after you've explained it and someone still keeps giving ignorance, then I think at that point you can attack, not physically, verbally. You can tell them, look, we need to be respectful with each other. But yeah, resilience, having an open mind, and willingness to learn.
Okay. Flavian, you've mentioned some topics that are very dear to my heart. First, you mentioned you made reference to the fact that most Africans regard farming to be jobs for the illiterates or people who are in the village, and that is why we got the high percentage of peasant farmers in Africa. Most African farmers are not commercial farmers, so that is why we continue to import products, food into Africa from other parts of the world. I will discuss that, but before we go into that, I want us to discuss diversity in the UK agriculture. When I saw you, I was really happy to see somebody who looks like me in agriculture, because in most of my meetings or in most conferences I attend, it's very likely that I'm always the only black person. So to see another black person, I was really happy about that. Who are you? Are you an African? Are you a British, or are you a Kenyan?
Who am I? I'm a Luo cross Kikuyu Kenyan man, East African,
Yeah.
and then residing in England, which makes me British. Officially, I don't even have a British passport yet, so I'm still Kenyan.
All right.
I think in my heart, I'd be lying if I said I'm British first. I'm Kenyan. Yeah. I'm African.
You see?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is interesting. I have been in this country for almost 20 years. I've got a British passport, but many people still see me, ask me, where are you from? And when they ask that question, I've never said I'm from Britain. I've never said I'm from Gloucester or whatever. I always say I am from Ghana. Anybody who asks me. So after that, some people may ask you a further question. Where are you from in the UK? Then I will answer. The reason why I'm saying this is my mental health is very important, Flavian. If you ask me where I'm from and I say I'm from Gloucester, I live in Gloucester, and I say I'm from Gloucester, and you ask me, no, where are you actually from? That is trying to take me through a mental torture. Because the fact of the matter is, there are millions of people in the UK who will never look beyond your color. no matter what.
Yeah.
Whether you were
Yeah.
born here, whether you've got a British passport, they will never look beyond your culture. So I am a proud African, and I say this all the time. I'm a proud Muslim. I say this all the time. I want to take that route, that stance, so that I don't get tortured. Somebody don't make fun of me. Oh, I ask you, where you from? I wanted you to say from Ghana. No, I am a Ghanaian, or I am an African first
Yeah.
before British. Although I've got a British passport. I don't know what
Yeah.
your opinion is about people asking you this question.
So so I try and depending on the person you're dealing with, and you can tell the caliber of person you're dealing with, and that's not just to put myself in a certain position. I'm a human being. I've got family that can't even speak English or can't even speak Swahili, which is the national language in Kenya. They only speak either Kikuyu or Luo. And I've got friends here that have gone to sort of Cambridge, Oxford. So I've got that balance where I've been exposed to both. And I'd say, depending on who's asking me that question, I would answer it accordingly.
Okay.
So if it's someone that's, let's say, not that exposed, and you can tell that from a mile away, someone that's not that exposed, because that with the setting as well, you could sometimes see, like there's a pub near where my parents live. Every single time I've gone there, bearing in mind I've been here for 16 years, every single time I've gone there, and I went there with a friend of mine, Nathaniel, he's Ghanaian as well. He was, I think he was born here, or he came here when he was really young.
All right.
And you just get someone coming to sit down, and they start talking nicely. Within like 3 sentences, oh, you know, are you guys don't mind these jokes, do you? And I'm like, oh, here we go again. So for me, sometimes I don't even have to say anything because I've got my Kenyan wristband.
Yeah.
And a lot of Kenyans nowadays, I think it's a pride thing. A lot of Kenyans have that wristband. And even my fiance, when we went to Kenya in June, I got our wristband. And I'm like, when we get married, you are Kenyan as well.
I like that.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, sometimes before we've even spoken, someone like, oh, you're from Kenya. So it's a conversational starter.
Yeah.
But my normal response is normally when they say, where are you from? I'm like, here or where I was born.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it throws people. They're like, oh, because they don't want to say where you're born because some of them might feel like they sound a particular way.
Yeah.
Or if they say here, they'll still want to know where you're born. So if I give them those 2 options, it throws them. But yeah, for me, I think I've got to a point now where I don't care. I know who I am. I know where I'm from. I've been brought up by parents that are proud Kenyans. I'm a proud Kenyan. My sister's a proud Kenyan. Most of my family are proud Kenyans. And I think even my social media handles, a Kenyan pig farmer. That's where it starts. And yes, I talk with a Kenyan accent partly because, with an English accent partly because at school, when I moved here, sort of talking in a Kenyan accent, getting mocked, and I got tired of it. When I talk to family or friends, Kenyan, like if my dad was ringing me now, I'll just switch to Swahili. Okay. And I'll never want to lose speaking Swahili.
When I met you,
an identity.
Yeah, when I met you on the farm, if you hadn't told me you weren't born here, I would have argued because your accent is more of British, somebody who is born here. My accent is a Ghanaian accent. I was 24 when I came in here. So I was brought up in Ghana. I was educated in Ghana. I got my first degree in Ghana. So my accent will remain a Ghanaian. But your accent is more of a British accent because you came here younger, when you were 15 or so?
Yeah, I was 15. And I would say my main reason for having an accent like this is because of being mocked at school. And even coming here, I used to hate speaking English because we used to get caned to speak English in Kenya because teachers wanted our English to be good. So we were only allowed to speak Swahili. At one school, we only allowed to speak Swahili on Friday. So Monday to Thursday, you have to speak English. Yes, it's helped because I'm eloquent in English. Almost some people might say I still sound like I came from Kenya yesterday. But for me, it got so tiring at school talking to people. What did you say? And even now, my dad, who has 2 masters, is a biomedical scientist, to be talking to someone at the pub, and someone was like, what? And I'm like, what? If you can't understand someone that studied here speaking English, what hope do you have when you go on holiday?
Yeah.
And I think it's just ignorance. So for me,
Yeah.
for my own peace of mind, I did learn to speak in that way.
Yeah.
But people know pretty quickly, even my friends know that there are words I say still in a Kenyan accent.
Hmm.
If I'm talking to family or friends, I I switch to a Kenyan accent. So for me, it was more necessity than choice.
Yeah. It's sad that, look, a person's accent will put them at a disadvantage. I was listening to another podcast by an African, a very wealthy, a very well established African in the US, who said he decided to leave teaching. When he came in, he had qualifications in teaching in Ghana. He decided to go into a secondary school to teach. He said for 2 weeks, the guys wouldn't let him teach at all. They were laughing at him, mocking at his accent. So he had to leave teaching and go in and train as a nurse. So he's now a nurse. That is how sad it is, what our accents can do to us, which is very sad.
It's bad. It's bad. And even names. Like we've got there's a podcast my friends and I were doing, and
Yeah,
one of my friends Ghanaian
yeah,
called Jojo Biden. So if he puts his name as
yeah,
Jojo Biden, no one can tell where he's from.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I think there was a time when during when Joe Biden was going for presidency, people used to think he was American. So even your name, and then my other friend from South Africa, Lindani Mpungula. So if
Yeah.
he puts his name as Lin, people aren't sure whether he's male, female, if
Hey,
he's Asian, and then he turns up and he's a black guy, and they're like, oh. So
is that
name,
you?
accent, yeah, I know. Yeah, so a lot of people in the UK won't understand this, but
Yeah.
the levels you have to go through before you even get to base level to where they are, too many. It's
It's
too many.
difficult. It's very
Mm.
difficult. That is interesting. So now we know the challenges of being somebody from a different country, or somebody who is from the ethnic minority, trying to even acclimatize or get adapted to the accepted in the UK population is difficult. You mentioned something that I really want us to dwell on African farming. We all from Africa. We still have uh, good thinking, or sort of mentality of trying to improve the livelihood of people in Africa. How do you think we can improve agriculture in Africa? What should we change? You talked about subsistence farming, where people are just farming small to feed themselves. How do we commercialize farming in Africa?
I would say, yeah, first and foremost, I think the governments will have a big role to play.
Okay.
Because I remember when the Ukraine war started, I think it was Paul Kagame, the Rwandan president, saying that why is a continent of over a billion worrying about a country not being able to feed them, and it's a country of 44 million. Why are we relying on such a small country to feed that many people? And you look at the different climates in Africa, the amount of food we export. When you go to supermarkets here, you got most of the veg, chilies, green beans, coriander, all those things come from Africa. Oranges, you got come from Africa. I went to a company the other day that import sweet corn and spring onion from Egypt and Senegal. So we've got such, and the problem is a lot of these big companies exporting here and owned by Africans. So
That's
we've got the resources there. We
yeah.
don't want to use them. We're letting people in rather than them train us. They're using their resources, probably deplete them and leave. So I think our governments need to empower the locals, and it won't take much because the land is there. People are keen. Because in a lot of countries, employment is probably not as high as it should be. So there are people free to work or available to work. So get them to work. whether it's like schemes, I don't know, national youth service or something, but an agricultural version. Get them out there, get them working, get them courses. And I think probably even 5 years, we'd see such a big change if this push was there. But I think by the time you've gone through corruption, by the time you've gone through things like tribalism, by the time you've gone through trying to get people out of this mindset of, well, if my neighbor's doing it, I don't need to do it. I can just go take it off my neighbor, or like it's there's so much to change. But I think the first thing we can start changing is by people like me and you and many others in the UK from Africa, showing our people what can be done, because we're the same as them. Yes, we were lucky enough to come here when we did, but we're the same as them. We're the same DNA, same person, just because we lived here. And we probably have, like for me, I've learned a bit more about efficiency, a bit more about the technology, being a bit more exposed, but we're literally the same person. So if we show by example, hopefully some of them might follow.
So Flavian, you also mentioned the fact that there are some products that are produced in Africa that are exported to the developed economies. That is telling us that there are some sectors of the agriculture industry in Africa that are well developed, but they are not owned by Africans. And then I'll give you an example with Ghana. Ghana is one of the largest producer of cocoa. Now, if you go to the market and you are looking for the best quality chocolate, it's likely to be from Belgium. Meanwhile, that cocoa that was produced in Ghana is not processed in Ghana, but exported to Belgium. We only benefit only 6% of the total. This is data from somewhere I read. We only benefit 6% of the total revenue, of the total value of the cocoa industry. Why can't we produce and process these things in Africa? It's because of corruption, it's because of tribalism, it's because of all of these. So what do you think we should do as the younger generation? The older ones, their minds are already polluted. They want to get rich either by fair or foul. But what advice have you got for Africans growing up to move away from corruption, to move away from tribalism, and to move away from petty things that is dragging the continent back?
I would say, so first of all, we probably need to think Pan-African rather than country. Like we've got to a level now where, like December, everyone goes to Ghana because that's where the parties are at. People go to South Africa, people go everywhere. So this whole thing of you're Ghanaian, I'm Kenyan, you're Ugandan, that needs to stop. Like the whole world, people just trade. Like you've got EU. Why can we not have an African Union where people just travel? If you're a farmer in Botswana doing beef, someone has a vineyard in South Africa, you've got a tea grower and coffee grower in Kenya. We just work together. You've got an orange grower in Egypt, everyone working together, having co-ops, and sort of growing the economy and exporting. And I think us that are in the UK, we've seen how systems can work without corruption. Yes, it exists corruption at a high level here, like government, etc. But at low level, at working class level, things can work, and you can hustle and make clean money without doing corruption. So we just need to replicate that back home. And yes, you said the elders, a lot of them are, especially in power, a lot of them are polluted, and money is already in their bloodstream. So all we can do is just rely on us. I don't know if could I go under 50, under 40. We just work together. Even having networks, like transport these days is so good. I don't see why we couldn't, even in different times of the year, cost dependent, say, okay, we're gonna either meet up on someone's farm in Namibia or pick a country and people meet up. Just having groups of like-minded people like they do here. Like here we've got, I did a Tesco Future Farmer foundation last year where we had people from Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, all working together, being brought together by Tesco to sort of, you've all got a common goal. You're all people in farming or allied industry working together. I don't see why we can't have something like that in
Nice.
Africa. Whether there's an African Union agricultural board, I don't know. I know Kenyan has some agricultural things going on. I don't know whether the Ghanaian government has something like that or not.
They do have they implemented some programs earlier called planting for food and jobs and also rearing for food and jobs. But I have argued with them that that system is not going to work because the way they've implemented it is politically motivated, and that is one of the problems we have. They always want to help people that support them, and that's not how you do things. You have to find
Yeah.
people who have got the know-how, who have got the time, who have got the dedication to work, to do the work. But they give contracts to, whether it's contracts of building roads, they give it to their party members. The party members will do it. The next day, everything is destroyed. We can't work like that. We cannot continue to work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think hopefully maybe in the next 10, 15 years, we might have a few young people going for some of these high positions.
Yeah.
And I think even if you had a cabinet of an old generation leader, but full of young people in the chambers, I think they would slowly turn.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think it's a long game. This is definitely a long distance rather than a sprint. So you just need to keep going, keep plugging away.
Nice one, nice one. So, Flavian, my last question to you is, for those of us who are fortunate to be given the opportunity to work in the agriculture industry in the UK, and we are from Africa or we are from other parts of the world, how do we, those of us from Africa, how do we come together in the UK and be able to transfer the experience, the knowledge that we've gained to people back home to be able to improve, to be able to come to become more efficient? Do you suggest we form a group, or how do we come together to make sure the knowledge we are gaining is not lost, is transferred back to Africa?
I think with social media now, it's so easy to show people what you're doing.
Yeah,
Like for myself, I try and do it as much as I can, and people think it's just fun because some people just like the attention. But for me, I'm happy just existing.
yeah,
But I know if I don't do it, no one else will.
absolutely.
So I have to do it, even though sometimes I have to take time out, like you say, for your mental health. But I think social media is a big one. So anyone in the industry that's African, if you can show what you're doing online for people back home to see, like sometimes remember there's a guy from Eastern Cape used to message me on Instagram saying, "Oh, my pig's not looking well today. What do I do?" I'm like, "Send me a picture."
Wow.
And you just talk to people. Someone I've never met, Tanzania, people from Nigeria asking about pigs. So I think social media is a big one. And then the group thing you mentioned there, I think next year we should definitely set something up.
Nice one.
Um, Even if it's meeting on Zoom every so often, then
Yeah.
once every few months we meet up somewhere central and just sit and talk. Because if like time goes so quick, before we know it, we're going to be retiring and we wouldn't have done anything. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
now you think of an idea and action it as quickly as you can.
Nice one, nice one. So, Flavian, thank you very, very much for agreeing to come on this. Are you happy if somebody wants to contact you, maybe from Africa, or I'm gonna share the YouTube link to my colleagues in Africa to also try and broadcast it so that people will benefit from this podcast. How do people contact you, or you rather not want people to contact you?
Now, definitely contact me because I think sharing knowledge is key.
Yeah,
And I came into this world without knowledge, and 31 years I've gained a bit of knowledge. So there's no point dying with it. I might as well share with people.
nice one.
So yeah, contact wise on most social media will be the Kenyan Pig Farmer. And on YouTube, I've not done as many videos as I should, but I've got a new phone with a better camera, so I should be doing more. But that's the Kenyan Pig Farmer as well. So I've got videos there on about just general things about pig farming. Nothing structured. It's just what I'm doing. I'll just put it on there. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. if anyone wants to be professional. And then send me a message and we'll discuss things.
Nice one, Flavian. I really appreciate your time. We are here together. I'm not far from you. You live in Hampshire. I'm in Gloucestershire. So we will be meeting from time to time just to exchange ideas and see how we can support farmers here and in Africa.